Okay, thanks for clicking on this video. Now, if you haven't watched part one to this, where I'm dealing with how to develop a defensive prayer strategy, then you probably want to click on the link that's in the description to see the first part of this, which is going to tell you how fasting should be done. But if you're already watched that, then this is pretty much the continuation of that first video, to where I'm going to be teaching how to select a fast for a particular situation. And just a quick recap for those of you who need a recap. I'm dealing with dry fasting and water fasting and the duration of the fast and how to appropriately select a fast. Let me give you an experience that happened with me. There was a situation one night where I woke up in a vision, in this trance, and I'm laying in the bed, and all of a sudden I look at my left hand, and it's sort of contorting. I'm like, what's wrong with my hand? It's what I say to myself. And all of a sudden it's like I felt a force slap me on the left side of my face. And my mouth started twisting. And I said, oh no, you're in for a fight tonight. I knew exactly what it was. It was a stroke spirit that was attacking me in a vision. And by the time I came out of that vision, which was maybe about 10 to 15 seconds later, I had literally kicked all the covers off the bed, fighting the spirit. I immediately went on a dry fast. No food, no water. Why? Because this thing is trying to kill me. It's time to go on a dry fast now. It's not time to say, I'm going on a Daniels fast, and then you're sitting there looking what you're going to eat for breakfast. No. This is a serious situation because I know it's coming back. I'm not eating anything. I'm not drinking anything. I went on a dry fast, and behold, it came back. And this is during the period where I really didn't know how to fight these things. I was learning. I was being taught. It came back, and I had built up enough fire, enough spiritual strength to be able to fight it off even more aggressively than I did the first time. And that was it. So, when you get a situation to where it is something serious, dry fast. Even if you have to break at 6 o'clock or 9 o'clock, it's dry because it's serious. Now, let me sort of go back through the levels and try to determine a better way to make everything more appropriately. But let me share this, because I did mention something about the one mistake that most people make when they break a fast. Listen to this. I got a testimony from someone that was, by the way, in India that reached out to me. And the person told me that, she is married, she's a Christian, but she's secretly a Christian in her home, and her husband is still a Hindu. He doesn't know she's a Christian in the home. And she's hearing these blasphemous words in her mind that have been screamed to her. And she see the same thing that's happening to her husband. Her husband speaks the same way as she's hearing these voices. And so she went on a 30-day fast. And she said that during the process of that 30-day fast, those blasphemous words stopped. So she decided to expand it to 40 days, and it stopped. Now, after she stopped the 40-day fast, guess what happened? It came back. Now, the 40-day fast was good. But this is the one mistake that everybody makes, including myself, that I'm going to teach you, and you no longer have to make it, is when you fast. Number one is when you go on fast, such as that one, you have to keep in mind the example that I gave of the skillet, the oil, and the fire. So for 40 days, she turned the fire on. And after 40 days, she turned the fire off. I don't care how hot that skillet gets during the 40 days of having the oil, of having the fire on. When you turn the fire off, what's going to happen? It's going to get cold, which means it can be handled again. You can do anything you want to do with it. The mistake that people make is we have a tendency to want to return back to what we used to do after the fast. And let me explain something to you. That level 1 fast that I gave you, which is fast every day till noon, I did that for an entire year. A whole year. And that 1 year, I made more progress than any other year in my life. And when I decided that God forgive me, I broke the fast one day before 12 o'clock. And when I tell you, the angels that were assigned to me were upset with me, because I decided that bacon and eggs was more important than the promise of God, than a promise I made to God, a vow of my own words. So you have to be, dedicated to do that for an entire year. What's more important to you? Reaching your destiny or bacon and eggs? Or, whatever you eat for breakfast. A granola bar. What's more important? A granola bar or you actually fulfilling your purpose in life? So that level 1 fast is a prolonged fast. So in a situation such as this, sister, it would be my recommendation that if you're going to go on a 40-day fast and you're in a situation such as hers, what you do is you get your fire. You think about when you're boiling water. You turn the skillet up or you turn the fire up to get the temperature of the water up. But then once you get the water at a certain temperature, what do? You turn the fire back down and you let it simmer. You can let it simmer for hours, depending on what you're cooking. And so if you're doing a 40-day fast where you're breaking at 6 o'clock, or you're doing a 3-day dry fast, what you do is you back down to a simmer, to where now you're fasting every day till noon, until you break whatever you're trying to break. That's the key. Knowing how to turn the fire up and how to keep it at a simmer. Because the mistake that I made was I came off of that 1 year fast because I wanted to take some pancakes in the morning, and and the pancakes were not worth it. There was no benefit in sitting around eating something that has very little nutritional value, because most breakfasts that's pushed in front of us, they don't have much nutritional value in it. So that's one of the key ways to determine what you're fasting for or which fast you should select. Now, when you get to a 3-day fast, it can be that you're scheduled to go in for an interview. It can be that you're scheduled to take an exam. It can be a challenge that is coming, that the enemy consistently fights you when you get to this point. I had a person reach out to me from Africa, and this person kept saying that whenever they went in for a job interview, they kept seeing a relative appear in their dreams and doing something strange, and all of a sudden, kaboom, they wouldn't get the job. And in that dream, they see themselves sitting at a table taking a test, and the bell would ring and they would have no answers on the test. And so I told the person, this is what you need to do. You need to start fasting. And she started fasting immediately. Bought the books I told her to buy, started fasting, and lo and behold, kaboom, she got a job. She's a doctor, but she couldn't find a job. And so she ended up getting a job. So you're strategically setting that fast to where you're trying to get through. You're strategically setting that fast as to what the opposition is going to look like. And you want to be prepared for it. Now, for instance, when you look at a 3-day water fast, your spirit man is going to really open up to the Lord, to hear from the Lord, and to get divine revelations. And there are a lot of times things that have been held up will be released to you. Spirits, in my opinion, what I've learned in my experience, if they find out that you fast in 3 days, they're just going to go and hide it for 3 days and hope that you turn the fire all the way off, and they'll be back around the 6th day. That's how they operate. So it's good not to fast in secret. Now I'm on a fast, but I am not going to really tell anybody how long I'm going to do it. But I will tell you it's going to be long, very long, very, very, very long. So, and I'm not going to even tell, I'm not going to express to people what I'm doing because I have a reason that I'm doing it. And so now, when you look at those fasts where you're fasting till 2 o'clock daily, those fasts, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, those fasts, I would recommend nothing under 21 days starting out. In fact, if you're new to fasting and you plan to start fasting and you don't know how to do it, this is what I would recommend to you. For all of you, this is right off the bat. 21 days, level 1, breaking at 12 o'clock. Now, if you get to the 21st day and you find that it is normal to you, don't stop. Stretch it out to 40. If you get to the 40th day and you find that it is still normal to you, don't turn the fire off. Stretch it out to 100 days. I'm serious. If you get to the 100th day and you find that it is still easy to you, stretch it out to 6 months. If you get to the 6-month period and it's still normal to you, by then it is a lifestyle. Keep it going. Because what's going to happen is during that time period, all of those strange things that happen to you in the dreams, then no. That's over. You're in charge now. The way they're manipulating you in your dreams and different things like that, that's over with. Divine favor that you expect God to give you, when I'm on fast like that for an extended period of time, there can be things that you will see on the internet that you want, that I have seen that I wanted, and the next day went into a store and found it marked down over 90%. There are times when I will go into the grocery store and the stuff that I have on my list will be super on sale. The favor of God lines up because the fire of God on your life is so hot that the enemy can't get in the way to resist it. I recall when I first started doing this, I was fasting, and one night I was in a vision and an evil spirit had me in a bear hug from behind. It had me in the bear hug from behind. And the voice of the Lord spoke to me and said, "You have sin in your life." And I simply said, "Lord, forgive me." When I said, "Lord, forgive me," it was as if something on the inside of me exploded, boom, and blew that evil spirit off of me immediately. So, if you're going to fast, you got to stay away from sin. That's just a given. You know that. So that's the key. Is if you're going to do it for a sustained period of time, you got to constantly pray and you got to constantly keep yourself before God in the right condition to continue keeping the enemy away from you. Now, let me point this out. If you've been tormented in your dreams and you start seeing things, what's going to happen is the enemy is going to come in your dreams and try to reinitiate you into a lot of covenants or curses that have been broken during that process. So there's mainly, I want to say, 2 things that you will see happen consistently in the dreams at this point. You will see, number 1, hands always passing you something to eat. Yeah, eat this. Eat this. You always see them trying to give you something to eat in your dream. They're trying to reinitiate a covenant with you. And number 2, they will try to engage in sexual intercourse with you. Now, I promise that I'm going to make a video on the spirit wives and the spirit husbands. But I've heard some ladies, you've been engaged, and all of a sudden, the guy just calls it off. He don't want to be with you anymore. I can tell you right now that you got a spirit spouse without even having a conversation with you. If that consistently happens to you, you have a spirit spouse that's doing that. And when you start fasting, that spirit will come to you in the form of somebody that you've probably been intimate with or somebody that you admire or somebody that you find attractive, and it wants to have sex, and it's begging because it's becoming weak and it's dying. Now, let me express to you what I mean by a spirit dying. I once heard this preacher from Africa, Dr. Daniel Olukoya, telling people to tell spirits to die. And I'm like, what's wrong with this man? How are you going to tell these folks to tell a spirit to die? A spirit can't die, is what I said to myself. But then the Lord instructed me well to pray it. And I started praying it. And the strangest thing happened. There was a spirit that I saw when I was 20 years old. Came in my bedroom walking upside down on the ceiling. Okay? And I saw it again when I was 27, standing at the foot of my bed, swinging an axe like this. One morning when I woke up out of a vision, and I got so sleepy, and I was like, oh, I got to get up from this bed. I just see something standing at the foot of my bed, swinging an axe, dressed like a samurai ninja. But when I started commanding spirits to die, in 2014, 7 years after that, I saw that spirit again for the third time. This time, that spirit had fallen down in front of me and had died. So what you will start seeing is this. Those spirit spouses, boom. The longer you fast and start praying against them, you'll see those people that normally come to you trying to have sex with you in a dream, they'll fall over dead. Now, can a spirit die? Well, let me ask you a question. Can your car die? Yes. When something dies, it ceases to function in the operation that it was designed to do. Your car died. The car didn't cease to exist, but it no longer functioned as it was designed to do. So when you command a spirit to die, you're speaking death to its function. You're speaking death to its assignment. And it's the easiest way to do it. I recall one night, when I was learning how to do it, there was a spirit standing at the foot of my bed, and I had been fasting and praying, and I looked at this spirit and I said, die, very aggressively. And it was like when I spoke to it, half of his head disappeared. And I said, die again. It was like a section out of this part disappeared. And I started noticing every time I say die, some of this spirit disappears. So I just kept saying it, die, 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 until it completely disappeared. So when you hear me saying commanding a spirit to die, you're speaking death to the operation of the spirit. And a lot of those things, as you start fasting, they're going to start dying. You're going to see those spirits that you've been seeing in your dreams that have been tormenting you for years, they're going to fall over and start dying. Now, I think I dealt with the level 1 fasting, which is what I would recommend for everybody to start off with, as a level 1 fasting, if you're not used to fasting. Now, if you are extremely tormented because you have a prayer life already, you fast already, and I've heard some of the people saying that, I already fast. One person was like, well, is it going to get to where I'm going to have to fast every day? What's more important? You can't sleep. The enemy is trying to kill you. And you've discovered that your enemy fears fasting the most. Then what did I say in the first video? Then you should be doing fasting the most. Point blank. Would you trade off bacon and eggs for being able to sleep in peace? Or a granola bar? I think it's a trade-off worth it. So you need to go on a prolonged fast. You need to go on a prolonged fast to cover ground. Because what happens is when you go on that prolonged fast, it allows you to move from one assignment to the next assignment. And when you start moving from those assignments, you have the spiritual weight now to be able to defend what God has given you. And not only that, your spiritual gifts start awakening, your anointing starts increasing, and your discernment goes through the roof. You start seeing things that you never really paid attention to. So I'm going to try to wrap this up in just a second here. But the main point that I wanted to point out is the seriousness of the fast is determined by the seriousness of the situation. Life or death situation, oh, it's time to shut it all down. Flip the plate over into cup 2. It's time to shut it all down. Situation where, you're in college, you're trying to get through school because a lot of people hate you, blah, blah, blah. Then one of the lower level fasts for a sustained period of time is what you probably need to get through a situation like that. As a ministry, depending on what you're working on, is it something that the enemy is doing where he's trying to destroy the church, then put the church on a whole fast and determine by the guidance of the Spirit the level that you need to operate in. Now, I know I've covered a lot in these last 2 videos dealing with this, but I honestly want to admonish you to consider doing it. What do you got to lose? Bacon and eggs or a granola bar? So you have to decide what it is that you're faced with and put an appropriate level of fast in response to it. And don't be alarmed by what happens those first few days. The reason why you're going to start seeing spirits manifest is because they're threatened. They're threatened now. That's why they're sticking their head up. They're showing because I, just recently, Jesus, I had to deal with something. I mean, high level warfare. That's why I went in hiding for like 2 weeks because I got to fast. Because once you start fasting, as my mother told me years ago, and when you start living for the Lord, your trials will get more difficult as you go higher in God, which is true. But God will give you the grace, the wisdom, and the strength to endure. As you start fasting, it's going to become more difficult, but the problems will be easier to work. When you were in the first grade, the teacher put a word on the chalkboard, you looking like all the rest of the kids like, what is that? You didn't know. But as you got to the 12th grade, you were still learning new things, but you had learned so much to where, I see an imp now. Lord help me, I feel insulted. What? You. Because that's level 1. But as you start fasting and praying, you probably will see them. If you've never seen them, you will see them, because the higher up spirits, if your fire is too hot, they ain't coming. The witches and warlocks, when your fire gets too hot, they ain't coming. They're going to kick them little imps out there because they can't defend themselves among them. They're going to send spirits that can't really do nothing but come over there and peep to see whether or not you still fasting and praying. That's it. They'll try something to keep themselves that distance from you. Oh, wow. And I got to tell you this particular dream. The first time I went on a dry fast, I tried to do 3 days dry, but I couldn't do it. Second day of the fast, I had a vision where I was standing in this room, and it was like a white room, and it was like Jesus had me by the hands. And he was pulling me, telling me, like, what you doing, keep doing it. And he was kind of pulling me through. And the fast was hurting me so bad until I really didn't. I couldn't sustain it because I wasn't used to it. Then on like the next day, I had another vision where I saw an evil spirit with a cup of water in his hands. And it was on the floor and it was coming towards me like this, with a cup of water. And it was trying to pour it in my mouth. And I'm looking like, what in the world is this thing doing? It's trying to get me to break the fast. My fire was too hot for it to just straight up walk to me. So it had to approach me with caution and try to get me to drink the water. And I didn't know what was going on, so I broke the fast. So that's what's happening when you're fasting. Remember, and I'm not going to keep saying the same thing over and over and over. I got to go to work, all right? Remember that you look at the situation. How difficult is the situation that you're facing? And you determine the level of the fasting that you need. If you need to know the levels again, then see the first part of this video. I hope this has been a blessing to you all. I'm about to get out of here and go to work, and I'm going to continue this series and go a little bit deeper into it as far as developing a defensive prayer strategy. That's just one tactic within the entire means of developing a defensive prayer strategy. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. God bless.